only option is fighting for unity. Love, I like that spirit, I got that. You can never fuck with me. Cause I be my own prophet, fighting for unity.
Look at the situation we living in, it makes me cry. You think everything is fine to begin with. The color of my skin is no invitation for you to get offended. I don't need to listen to that brainwash, cause you just wanna talk about the same stuff. Man, you have to check this. How fake is your perspective when you still think that change can be elected? Please, I'm an African soldier, I don't need to read the book written by the Greeks. Damn, it seems you never understand how this all started. Yeah, they fucked up the world cause they're cold-hearted. Now they run around innocent, killing a million with the hands of a president. And what you stand for is irrelevant. Better be ready for the battlefield.
The fight has just begun. There's no place for you to run. Better be ready, ready to burn the Babylon. Love, I like that spirit, I got that. You can never fuck with me. Cause I be my own prophet. The only option is fighting for unity. Love, I like that spirit, I got that. You can never fuck with me. Cause I be my own prophet, fighting for unity.
People talk about vibes, but don't know what it means. The energy around that is living in your dreams. Do you feel the snake crawling up your spine to your third eye? You would see the earth fry, but you're blind to the fact that the system is killing the black man. And religion is just a trap, man. Jesus Christ, I know what they've done. You don't even know that you worship the sun. It's all fiction, and it's called white supremacy. Painting pictures on the wall don't make it real to me. Yeah, just follow the facts. They stole everything from the pyramid text. Now back to the source, back to the roots. That's where I found love and it's invisible. Yeah, back to the source, back to the roots. That's where I found love and it's invisible.
Love, I like that spirit, I got that. You can never fuck with me.
You cannot fuck with me.
I'm my own prophet. The only option is fighting for unity. Love, I like that spirit, I got that. You can never fuck with me. Cause I'm my own prophet, fighting for unity.
So, I just kind of wanted to talk about the processes of like shooting the video, editing it, and yeah, so basically what happened is, I got my boy Mohjay. He was going to come down and help me shoot my film, but African immigrant visa. But his German friends in his band, Vive's Delivery, they were like coming through, and their video guy like fell through last minute, so I had like an evening to prep for the shoot. So he sent me the song Unity, and he sent me another song. I chose to go with the shorter song just because I knew we weren't going to have a lot of shooting time, so I wanted to maximize what we did get. So having a shorter video kind of helps, and the song was good. I also requested he would like send me, a music video or a movie or an image or anything that gave a bit of the style he had in mind for the video. And like I was saying last night when we were talking, it's like there's two types of people. There's people who plan, and there's hoes. Like, so, hoe situation though when your video guy falls out last minute. So, but
yeah, you make do.
Exactly. So he said like Religion by Talisman was the music video he was inspired by, and then Kendrick Lamar's High Power. So I just looked at those videos, and then luckily the lyrics were in English this time, so I transcribed the lyrics myself, went through them, thought about them a little bit, looked at the videos, packed up, and we had 2 days of shooting. We shot in like Queensbridge area, then day 2 we did Bronx and like Harlem, Manhattan. Yeah, so as I'm planning to publish this at some point, don't call me out on my lack of street cred. Yo, I'm crippled. I don't walk around New York City no more, thanks to the malpractice. So, yeah, basically, I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit. But, yeah, I felt like in the edit phase, this is a pretty short music video. Like, I think the song itself is like around 2.5 minutes. And so we had a short song, and we actually managed to shoot a lot of pretty good footage since we had 2 days to shoot a 2.5 minute music video, which is definitely enough time. So in the edit phase, initially I was like, the first 10 seconds of this video have to set up the whole video. Because the more I edit, I find the thing that separates, watching great filmmakers and just great visual artists from not that is, and the same thing with writing and music, really every creative discipline, is the idea of development. So much like the thing with having a plan, you want to have like a kind of roadmap to where you're trying to get.
Mm-hmm.
So I started with the lyrics, lyrics that stuck out to me just off the top of my head. In the hook, love, I locked this, spirit, I got that, you can never fuck with me, be my own prophet, fighting for unity. So fighting for unity, right? Which means unity hasn't happened. It's a process, something that is being developed. So I was like, how do I visually sell this idea of developing unity against its antonym, segregation, And so the first 10 seconds, I wanted to establish the themes that would be developed throughout the rest of the video. So let's just take a look at those first 10. Right. So we have, I opted for the more filmic shot here, like Raslock is not looking at the camera. His artist name is Raslock, his real name is Philip. So here, this is in Queensbridge area, and I didn't want to do the headshot. I feel like when I look at my old content, it's too much headshotty, and trying to break that habit. So I was like, what's organic? He's waiting at the bus stop, and it creates a bit of interest, right? I think with bad writing, everything's overly like expositional. So showing the face, like those indulgent R&B music videos where it's like the dude crying and it's a one shot of his face. It's like, no, like I'm more of like a political, historical guy, so I like to show you the infrastructure and the institution.
Yeah, I mean, I can absolutely see the politics of it all. Just in the first 10 seconds, you grab, there's industrial, there's bars on the window, there's a guy waiting for a bus, there's the close-up of the African necklace. Like, that encompasses your style immediately.
Precisely, man. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, basically say my points, and that's exactly how it should be. Yeah, because I also did stuff with colors, like this shot was overexposed, and I was using the GX85, which is a great camera, but the dynamic range, since it's only a micro four thirds sensor, it goes from light to shadow extremely quickly. But it's the camera that's cheap enough I trust taking outside on a shoot I'm not planned for, and I even had a moment where I was thinking of fixing this on exposure with like a mask, but I found when I evened it out, it kind of drew attention away from my subject, because naturally we gravitate.
It would, because then people would look at the sign and what's over there.
Exactly,
really, he's in focus. That almost is irrelevant. It's just you get where he is immediately.
And, I toned it blue, because it was afternoon when we shot this part, and I wanted to set up this contrast of like, warm African, my Kenyan music video history had that kind of warm color palette. And then Raslock, is a friend of Mohjay's, and so it kind of had that going on in the back of my head, and I wanted to juxtapose the cold and warm. So yeah, that next frame is just the colds. I like the little detail of the Mercy in the bottom left corner, but it's an advertisement, almost like deceptive.
Mm-hmm.
And then like you were saying, the bars, the rigidity, the grid, but then also depth in the frame, right? You want something in the FG, the foreground, background.
Yep.
And so there's the shadow of the tree, and the tree kind of represents the organic life versus the man-made colonizer segregation that's in every city in the world. This wealthy colonizers with genealogies of privilege and merchant banking, slave auctions, but in a more distant, real way, it's like remote control. you know,
Well, I mean, the plant in the window says that despite all that, there's still hope for life and growth.
right.
Of
That's
course.
the struggle for life against the infrastructure, the pot of
Mm-hmm.
itself of the plant, almost you could say. Um, and yeah, it's like the remote control is like how power really works. Like, like in Kenya, the policing was more community interpolicing, as opposed to laws that are made from the commanding heights of the economy and people buying political influence, and then that trickles down to police murder of African Americans and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I wanted to do this, like the remoteness of it, and the color contrast. And this was a cool shot. I almost hesitated to include it because it's out of focus, but I kind of liked it because it fit into that theme of the dreams not quite realized. And you've got like this dude holding up, what looks like two windows for eyes, and this pastoral organic fantasy, a rainbow, and then this, urban landscape above it. So I thought, having that out of focus actually worked, and I just used the saturation in post to boost the colors to give you that sense of longing. Then back, Raslock introducing himself. I'll let it go on for a little bit. Right. So that verse there, in terms of like my inserts and stuff, so we had the Gold Africa chain that you pointed out, which was derived from a conversation with Mohjay. He was basically saying like this idea that Africa, Kenya, it has the people are the gold, and I think that's part of that, the opposite of that atomization and that trickle down and that remote control thing. And I think that's what attracts a lot of poor whites, like from my kind of demography. Not that I'm the poorest of the poor by any stretch, but it attracts us to hip hop, at least when I was a kid in the '90s and all that. So this idea of like gold being in the continent, this sort of response to colonization, and then you'll notice the inserts here. We have like the these lovely little like shots of the right here, like the previous shot and the shot like kind of that organic and bars theme, and then even the blue I boosted in post to get that sense of the cold outside world kind of trying to crush the lives within, and that resolves visually. Like, remember I was talking about like development.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of builds to the resolution here, like when he says fighting for unity, and then we see the entire apartment complex or whatever. Once again, for all I know, this could be a Macy's store. It's just, we're operating on the level of feelings, and if I had more time, I'd do the research and do that kind of thing. But yeah, fighting for unity. So, I'm kind of teasing the building and then, the reveal of the entire structure, which leads into the next couple of themes.
And then the tree goes from end to end, which is very cool.
Exactly, yeah.
Look at the situation we living in, it makes me cry. You think everything is fine to begin with.
I really actually want to spend a second on that moment.
Now, I did want to ask, why the facing right?
Yeah. The facing right was just space limitation, to be honest. I had to shoot this in the corner of a room that was not really having enough space, but going back to that idea I said in the beginning, about I don't really want to do like lip sync and facing the camera directly too much. There's definitely moments where it worked, and I'll go into that too, but in this part of the lyrics he's saying it makes me cry. And while we were doing the lip sync takes in my house, we were shooting on the Sony A7 III with the G Master lens, and what I like about having a little higher end camera than I'm used to is with the G Master with the good glass and good lighting finally. since I had more control over the environment shooting at my house. You know, with that lens combo, you can get very good details in the face. Like some of the shots you'll notice this is 1080 resolution, but in the full 4K you'll see like the little scars on like his cheeks and stuff like that. And in terms of selling emotion, I feel like it helps a lot. And even the shot size itself, this was like an extreme close up. Another great feature like about the Sony, you can zoom in with the G Master lens I got. I think it's like the 24-75, just off the top of my head. But and then there's the APS-C mode that crops it in even further. So I was really, without moving my tripod around too much, able to get really close on him. And Philip was good at like, you know, kind of staying within the frame. And for people, you know, starting out shooting, working with non-actors, one thing I learned, interview, some guy was talking about acting with Marlon Brando. And when he did a shot, he would like grunt and he would put his hand against his chest, like, you know, around nipple height to be like, is this the shot size, you know? Or, you know, you could put your hand by your hip to be like, is this hip size, you know, hips up? And, you know, so I was using that vocabulary with Philip, you know, and, you know, kind of telling him the range of motion he was going to have, the kind of thing Michael Caine talks about on that acting in film thing on YouTube. Highly recommend that. Basically, you know, how much freedom do you have within the frame and just knowing what the frame is. And that goes back to the Marlon Brando, where does the frame stop? You know, does it stop at my nipples? Does it stop at my hips, etc.? But yeah, artistically, it was like, it makes me cry. And I told him while we were doing the lip sync takes, just relax. And I want some takes of him just vibing to the music. And when he hit that line, you could just feel the soulfulness in like his eyes and his pain, you know.
It's a good lyric to do a close up on, for sure.
Cheers, yeah. And I remember Mohjay was saying, you know, he has a son with like a German woman, and they live in Germany now. And he was saying like there was a documentary where, you know, there was a song they would sing in like, I don't know what the German equivalent of like, you know, kindergarten is. Kindergarten's a German word. What am I saying? But there was like a song that was like, who's afraid of the black man? I am, you know. And so Raslock, being about our age, grew up at a time where that was like a thing, you know. And Mohjay, you know, the guy who made the beat for this song, Mohjay Da Producer, my old friend from Kenya, you know, he's raising a kid in that environment, in that kind of ether, or whatever you want to call it. So I thought it was important to, like, you know, give the emotion as opposed to the lip sync, which is a little bit more on the edge of telling the emotion. Yeah, so I just wanted to take time to say that.
I think everything is fine to begin with. The color of my skin is no invitation for you to get.
Just quick, old Hollywood meta. This I ripped from The Third Man, the end of The Third Man. I don't know if you've seen it, Mike.
I have, yeah, I own that one.
Yeah, so you know when Holly is thinking he's going to get the girl after Gangster of Love, Orson Welles is like, would you care if those dots below the Ferris wheel stop moving forever? And, you know, he's expected to get the girl at the end for snitching on his gangster boy that's selling, like, whack polio vaccines or something. And, you know, you get this bit of, you know, that glorious, like, moral tension. Is she going to go with him or not? And, you know, I feel like that's kind of the narrative in America right now. Like, more than ever, we're saturated with this divisive race propaganda that normalizes the segregation and makes it like an aw shucks things for African Americans, and white guilt, divisive, make you feel tense thing for poor whites, maybe.
See, to me, this was more of, with the lyrics he's saying, you know, I'm my own prophet, fighting for unity, but he's alone. And you can see from this wide shot that he is all by himself. So, I mean, it's still a struggle to get that, even how confident he is with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm totally with that interpretation. Yeah, I was just
That's
kind
the
of,
fun of art. Everybody gets it differently.
hey man, like, if I can claim it, I'll just claim that right now. But yeah, same thing. Like, you know, the color contrast, there's a little bit of warmth in the building, and you've got the dumpster and the blue. So same thing, I was boosting the blue. And, you know, ideally, if I had more time to set up, I'd do a more Vertigo, sexy, rare, like, Wong Kar-wai red and green color palette, but when I have more time. So yeah, that was the shot there. Same thing. I just like the look of this shot. I boosted the blues a little bit, but it was pretty much the same. So here we have what I'm assuming is Queensbridge, because once again, don't quote me on it, but I wanted to get the underside of the bridge because it's a spatial hierarchy. This idea, the average African American day laborer, poor white day laborer type people that are making hip hop. Not to say it hasn't been colonized by brats. It certainly has been, and I'm part of that in some way. but yeah, like I'm trying to keep it historical though, and this infrastructure is deciding who lives where, dividing spaces, and that leads into the next shots, and that goes back to my theme of development. We really want to keep getting to the next spot here. Yeah, I'll just let it happen. Pretty heavy-handed here, the barbed wire, and then the glassy condo looking, the condo, like Jeezy says.
Yeah, I mean, they're the ones doing the work, but they're not going to be able to live in the place they're building.
Exactly, yeah. Work at McDonald's, can't afford to eat there, And I love Philip's expression. He really nailed, like, I had a little dialogue with him because I explained what the shot was and how he had a bit of the bridge overhead. That was all intentional, and I wanted him to give that condo vibe, Why can't I afford to live here? I'm a person too. Why don't I have the same pay, access opportunities, etc.?
Change can be elected, please. I'm an African soldier. I don't need to read the book.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Spending time on those little moments, because I feel like in music videos, as our buddy Jim said, there's that temptation to keep cutting and it gets meaningless, Moments, it's like Ozu films, like the cut at the end of Late Spring where it cuts to the ocean. It's an essential part of the movie because you need to reflect on the whole action and the emotions that have been earned throughout the film. There's that payoff in the ocean. It's like an ocean of emotion. And when you're cutting so much, it becomes alienating. Just like when I'm talking and I'm rambling, you start to lose focus. So I had other shots I wanted to put in there, but I ultimately went with that because I wanted to spend more time on that moment since it spoke to the point of the video. Here, I was learning about cinematic lighting and split lighting. At the beginning of Sicario, Emily Blunt, her face is inside of this armored vehicle, half lit. And that half lighting is a form of, like, moral conflict. It's typically used with male faces, but I thought it was good, once again, to talk about this kind of urban dichotomy. And, I liked how I matched the background having it too. And this was playing, knowing your gear and playing to its weaknesses. Like, since there's not a lot of dynamic range, I set the exposure so I could really, really get this dark shadow and have this ambivalence. And returning to what you were saying earlier, Mike, the loneliness of this shot. And then we'll see how it gets developed in a second. Rick and Morty. Malpractice stomach. Yeah. So
Yeah, you're right over there.
it's just normal whenever I move. So yeah, we've got the split light and that moral ambiguity, or just living in that space.
Book written by the Greeks. Damn, it seems you never understand how this all started. Yeah, they fucked up the word cause they're cold-hearted.
I love his eye contact there so much. Like, I was looking through a lot of takes that we did with the lip sync, and that particular moment, just the pained look in his eye, I really loved.
Yeah, they fucked up the word 'cause they're cold-hearted.
You can just feel it, and that once again,
See, that to me doesn't say pain. It says more tired of it all.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like rage too, absolutely. Like, and
No,
yeah.
not like rage. I'm tired of this, but more like just the world has pushed him down to the point that he's just, this is his last grasp at things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I mean, he's old like us, and he's living in this shit. And yeah,
so is
like
this guy from Germany?
yeah, as far as I know, he grew up in Germany, and this was actually his first time coming to the States. And actually, I'll get to that point at the end of the video, because it ties into the themes.
But they do rap in English. That's interesting.
Yeah. I assume he raps in German too, but the songs that luckily he was working with were in English. One more thing, earlier, that clip when his face is like this, I thought this was a great, going back to the geometry and going in a direction, moving to the right in Western culture, like reading is progress. And I thought this kind of profile shot, it had that feel of like marching, Rasta music, the way the percussion works. And let me take your drink here. Yeah. Rasta music, the way it works, it has that kind of upbeat, like I think your Bob Marley songs. Dun, 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 dun.
Mm-hmm.
And, even the way people kind of stomp in the yard dancing to it, it has a kind of, martial military rhythm that connects back to, Marcus Garvey's Marcus Garvey's movement and stuff like that. So I wanted to have that kind of military marching forward feel in the profile shots. And in the earlier moment, he has that when he's nodding his head. It's like, I'm an African soldier. I don't need to read the book written by the Greeks. It's like African soldier. And when I saw the profile shot and the head motion, I was like, oh, that fits well together,
So I do have a question. So you, as the filmmaker for this video, are you projecting your belief structure onto this German person? Because I will say that with their social support system in Germany, they don't really experience the same level of poverty or upward struggle that they would here if they were from here. So like the stuff you're talking about struggling against doesn't exist in Germany the way it does here at all.
Wewe, lakini, tuko pamoja. No, I always said Swahili in my broken toddler Swahili was, yeah, hey you, like, we're trying to like be together, it's fighting for unity. And to answer your question though, like what I think you're really asking, 100%, like, as a filmmaker, I'm quote unquote paid to bring like my vision to the film, to the video, and of course at the same time you have to respect like where the artist is coming from. And to be honest, I think it's an impossible balance whenever you're collaborating with anyone creatively.
Well, in this case, I think it's particularly interesting just because of the social structure of Germany is so different than here.
Right. But at the same time, there's a lot that's shared in the sense of, like I was saying earlier, that story of, a generation or two ago, who's afraid of the black man, I am, So that legacy is there. And, the European legacy of colonialism, human zoos in Germany, ironically ended by Hitler because he's afraid they're going to sleep with the white women. Jingo Aula.
Yeah, but, that's a systemic thing.
Yeah, and that's what this kind of stuff is. It's like, they're coming to America, so to speak. with his fellow bandmate Victor, who I should mention, bass player. And I did something with that dynamic as well as we continue.
And how this all started, yeah, they fucked up the word, cause they're cold-hearted. Now they're running around innocent, killing a million with the hands of a president.
This like hit me. I just want to back it up a tiny second. Yeah, right there. Killing a million with the hands of our president, and it's like, I don't know. I kind of like this idea of like rivers as like kind of spiritual pathways, like to be all corny and new age, like, you know.
You can always speak of India and the river Ganges.
Ganges, yeah, exactly, man.
Because a million have gone down that.
Or was that Langston Hughes? The Negro speaks of rivers. Yeah, like this background, it's a theme I've actually done in some of my earlier music videos. Basically, the idea of playground, empty playground is always sad, and this is getting really zoomed out and like super historical maybe, but hey, it's kind of my style.
When did you shoot this? It looks like you shot it last winter.
Yeah, I think we shot it in February of 2020.
Just before. Okay.
Yeah, and so the playground, what it means, like to me as the guy making it, colonization from like the 1600s, like the dawn of like merchant banking and farm debt, to like the Anglo version of literally creating like a stock market system pegged to the average price of an African American young 18-year-old male. That historically, when you talk about why things are bad, let me just get like deep for a second here. Like, what is rape and why is it bad? Getting really abstract with it, it's like rape is bad because it stops people from developing, right? You're traumatized by rape. It holds you back mentally, physically, emotionally, in numerous ways. And when you don't develop, you become, and this is something as a somewhat newly crippled person, I think about a lot. This idea that when you're underdeveloped, you're infantilized. So, and this is a huge theme in a lot of like African American writing and writing about colonization, writing out of Africa, because there's always this narrative of, it's like a goofy NGO phrase, development, in the World Bank sense. But, because of these ethnic hierarchies set up by those, economic institutions I was talking about, the cotton investors basically in England and in Europe paid for slavery to happen, right? They sent the poor whites from England, to trade with Africans on the coast, the West Coast, and bring them to America after stopping, in the West Indies. And actually,
in my perspective, rape is about power. So the rapist is taking the power of the person being raped.
Absolutely.
And for the rapist, the power gain is negligible and forgotten. It's a momentary blip to them, but the person whose power is taken away is a permanent change for them.
Yeah.
So that's why,
and like,
that's why
and then like physical sexual rape, Yeah, like, and I would just say, like, on the economic level, it's kind of, like, still ongoing, right? Because if I look at the census data today, I can see Native Americans and African Americans at the bottom in the U.S. and, whites and Asians at the top. So it's like, those hierarchies, are still very real. And that's why I did the shot, like, why is rape bad? Because it underdevelops you, it infantilizes you, and, like, you could say it's like the waste of a young person's life. No need for me to even add to what I mean by there.
The system that surrounds them where they live perpetuates that because it's taking away their power
of course.
The system.
And but once again, those criteria, that legal system, that plantation legal system, and that plantation economic system creates the conditions where, there's not a lot.
There also is no incentive to get off of that plantation because it's never going to end. You know, so I mean, if you're fed and housed in perpetuity, regardless of crimes or anything like that, talking outside of the prison system, I mean, what's your incentive to do anything about it? You're surviving, and maybe that's all you've been told that all you should do is just survive.
Right. It's kind of like that video you sent me, that documentary on the mining operation in Congo with the Chinese contractors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, there's that moment, I think I sent you a screenshot. It was like, basically this idea, like, as like Chinese nationals, we're a wealthier country and we have more respect in like, common parlance kind of way. So, the disgruntled kind of boss guys, like, sometimes they fantasize since, like, it's difficult to work with these Africans and there's communication difficulties and, a culture of how things are supposed to work. Because, I was watching a video on Jamaican history and this economist was saying, an Indian economist, I believe, was saying, what was it exactly? Countries where, there was like, I think it was like malaria rates and mortalities from like infectious diseases that would be high for white men, like colonizers. Those countries historically had much worse GDP and all that post-colonization because it was an economic infrastructure of what the economists called grab and go. So, African countries, Jamaica itself, Haiti, of course, places like this, the economy was set up to, they didn't build fully functional institutions. So that's why you don't have like the same culture of work because the colonizers didn't bother to set that up. It was just the train taking, the tea out of Kenya, the flour, whatever,
Well, I would say in the case of Haiti, they've been free the longest. So, I mean, they're not even close to what, say, the Dominican Republic has accomplished, and they're on the same island.
Right, but you also got to look at Haiti post-independence, and I'm not going to go all into this, I'll just be really quick with it, because I'll be here all night, but, and I'd love to do that sometime, by the way, that would be fun. But basically, like, Haiti post-independence was unilaterally screwed by, like, salty French, English, Spain, Portugal powers, because African independence doesn't fill their bank account. And, so I think, and Dominican Republic is just half of the island, that Haiti occupies. So if you want to read books about that, because I can't really do it justice, C.L.R. James, the Black Jacobins.
I think the problem with Haiti is once the people were in charge, they understood how to grift the system and then, keeping people down, and then they did exactly what the oppressors did to them.
Right. The loans are designed that way, like.
Well, it's not even the loans. It's the the whole Papa Doc thing, and then Baby Doc. I mean, that's 100 years of their history almost. Period.
For sure. I mean, you could basically every neo-colony kind of state has that going on.
Wanna see it like that? How can I deny? You wanna see it like that? How can I deny? You wanna see it like that? How can I deny? You wanna see it like that? How can I deny? Wanna see it like that? How can I deny? You wanna see it like that? How can I deny? You wanna see it like that? How I deny? You wanna see it like that? How can I deny? You wanna see it like that? How can I deny? You wanna see it like that? How can I deny? You wanna see it like that? You wanna see it like that? You wanna see it like that? How can I deny? How can I deny? I'm falling asleep in my chair. Oh yeah, who put me there? Them tribe boys. Jingle wabulaya, jingle wabulaya, jingle wabulaya, jingle wabulaya, jingle wabulaya.
But just to, once again, books that would help people understand that stuff. C.L.R. James, The Black Jacobins. It's just a history of like Haiti from the era of Toussaint. And then, excuse me, a favorite one of mine that's really approachable and a great first book if you're not into reading history, Mark Steele's Vive la Révolution. It's excellent because it's a mix of French and Haiti revolutions, and it has a little bit of like weird BBC comedian humor because that's who he is, English humor, but it's a great way into a comparative history of like Haitian Revolution and French Revolution, what poor whites in France were dealing with and how it compared with enslaved Africans in the West Indies. So that's an excellent book. And then a really great book for the economics of all this stuff, which I think is the story that doesn't get told, is Edward E. Baptist's The Half Has Never Been Told. I'll put the links in the description. But yeah, enough on Haiti. Cause,
yeah,
just to get
moving
through.
on.
Yeah. Blood on the hands of our president, apropos. And see, you get those beautiful little details with that A7 III with the full frame sensor. You get that little scar on the face there.
So when he says president, who is he meaning?
I've probably got to ask him. But to be honest, going back to the neocolonial thing, I think it's everyone. But I don't know, possibly Trump. I don't know. I couldn't answer for him.
If he's German, it'd be Merkel. It's
yeah, it could be Merkel too.
It's confusing. Is this song for Americans? That's the question.
I can't really answer. I could like try to fake an answer, but I'm not gonna.
Okay. Just wondering.
Yeah. All right. So then this is the infrastructure, and so now as we're progressing, we're about halfway through the video at the 1 minute mark. As we're halfway through the video, there's like this sort of sunset element coming into play because as we're shooting,
the sparkling nirvana, the upper crust that he can't get to, especially because it's not only under the bridge, but it's across the bridge.
That's a great novel by Kenyan novelist Ngugi Gisheru. But before I get to that, no, I'm not going to get into that. But for me, actually, and once again, great thing about art, I kind of saw it as this idea, like the potential he's striving for in this unity. And going back to the color palette, like these sort of colors in the top left and on the bridge here, you know, this sort of positive energy of him trying to build this unity and this hope for change.
I mean, if you really want to speak to economics and demographics, if you look, the buses are heading towards you, whereas the cars are heading towards there. So it's who even owns a car. There's a lot to speak about looking at what's on the bridge.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that.
So many levels, man. Come on.
Yeah, man. Next thing. Oh yeah, the birds too. The hope theme, you know. The Freedom Tower. Great to use a telephoto lens finally. And you know, the Freedom Tower World Trade.
To go to that since they rebuilt it.
Yeah, the white fucking alien Ridley Scott looking interior of that floor. This building I kind of wanted to be super blue because going back to that idea, you know, commanding heights of the economy, it was very political how the Freedom Tower is built / being built. You know, and you know, the change in demography in New York City since the 80s when you know, econ crisis, high crime rates, Trump comes in and buys up all the land and then makes it a, you know, segregationist paradise for yuppies. So like
what happened is all the rich people bought up all the property, then they elected a Republican to law and order the shit out of it and Disneyfy it and then make everything worth 10 times, 100 times what it was. And then that's done, so they bring back the Democrat mayors, and then things have gotten worse and worse as time has gone on. I mean, now look at all the homeless problem they have, even in the Upper West Side.
Yeah, man. I'm just saying, like, because to be honest, you know where I'm at in life. I'm like, oh, fuck Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah,
but
I know, but you can see the cycle throughout time.
But for sure, yeah, there's an ebb and flow. And so the cold color palette here, you notice there's no birds in frame because it's this idea that the further you get up the segregationist hierarchy, the ethnic econ colonizer organization, the more inhuman it is. And, that goes back to what I was saying about the poor white sort of desiring that African socialism, so to speak. I say that somewhat jokingly, but it's a real impulse. And I wanted to visually like show how that kind of stops the further you go up, the class ladder. My favorite shot in the whole thing. I'm going to take a little minute on this. So we've got our artist Philip, aka Raslock, with his Africa chain here, and same thing. That warm color is starting to shine on his face like a hope, but at the same time, this bridge here, assuming it's I don't even know the bridge. I'm not going to pretend like I know.
Looks like the Brooklyn Bridge to me.
But yeah, it's like the underside of the bridge, right? That theme of infrastructure holding down the black man in America. And, the leading lines of the bridge architecture going into his head. And then the American flag. So there's a hierarchy of space, right? So, like, in the back, mostly in shadow, but we're getting a bit of that hope light on these darker buildings here and Philip's face. And a bit on the edge of the bridge. It's this idea that, the highest building in the shot is the Verizon logo here. And so it's the idea like multinational companies that are responsible for, making people in the Amazon, indigenous broke people or poor farmer peasants, like, Nestle type corporations charging them to drink rainwater, their own rainwater. That level of colonizer, ethnic econ segregation structures America, right? And you see that spatially. You got Verizon dwarfing the bridge with the American infrastructure, the tax dollars. And then you've got the tax dollars subjugating our boy Philip here.
I mean, if you just have to see that the flag is below the corporate logo. That says everything in the scene. Right,
and it actually reminds me of this scene from Logan Lucky, the Soderbergh movie, written by his wife, I believe. There's a great scene in it where there's like a military parade and they shoot it from like the fence of the NASCAR race. And I don't know if military parade's the right word, but one of those.
It's the militarization of sporting events. I mean, look at football, the jet flyover. That's all you need to think about.
Exactly.
To our troops.
National anthem. And I love the scene where like the guy has a parachute, and I think the parachute was like an American flag, and then like Bubba Beer or something, or Bubba Shrimp, whatever it was. But it showed that kind of, the cart and the horse kind of dynamic of power there. And that's what I like about this shot, and just the emotion of how Phil kind of plays it. Philip plays it. And also just like there's this thing.
Nice.
Man, you're reading my mind today. Yeah, Kurosawa. There was a video Every Frame of Painting did on Kurosawa, and how there's this thing called like, having the storms in the movies creating their own kind of energy. And I think Channel Criswell said it pretty good, or maybe it was Cinefix, but this idea of and I'm going to mispronounce this German word, Gestalt, which is basically kind of like metany, which is like a bunch of things moving that are kind of one thing. So I felt like, the Gestalt, like, African hating of America is like what I do in a lot of my stuff. But, here it's just the nice gestalty energy of like you were saying, the waves and the cars that you can see on the highway, freeway, whatever here. And that's just always a nice thing when you're shooting outdoors to look for. Yeah. Same thing, that cold buildings, the higher you get up, but there's still some birds. It's not as high as the tip of the Freedom Tower. And now we're developing the scene we were talking about earlier. So, now Philip is joined in frame by his buddy Victor from his band. So, that darkness, that split lighting, that's also like the moral ambiguity, the hope ambiguity. That darkness being a little bit alleviated. And, going back to what I was saying earlier, I'm trying to like develop in America
Yeah,
and
I mean,
everywhere. Yeah.
he says unity. He comes into the light when he sees his friend. I mean, that's
Yeah, man.
there it is. Yeah.
And like I'm trying to build like I have like a self-conscious project to like undo the sort of divisive propaganda produced by like Jordan Peele type characters where it's like you grow up in like the wealthiest area in Manhattan and then you make like kind of exploitation movies profiting off you're like a race hustler basically. So like I'm trying to like undo that, you know, because the media and like what is called pop culture is of course corporate culture. It's, you know, determined by commercialism, Hollywood forces. And as an indie guy, we have the opportunity to use our poverty voices to react, but also just straight up generate our own voices. Going back to that thing, you know, the reaction is the guy with no plan. You know, you become like a hoe. But when you're generating your own content and you're developing it and you have a plan, that's the way to be. And to that end, I wanted to show a moment of like, you know, poor white African, Afro-German, and, you know, getting to that in a second, but solidarity, community, as opposed to the stuff we've been getting recently from, like, those Jordan Peele, Janelle Monáe, like, yuppie brat, F-buppy kind of movies, where it's all about, you know, the toxic white man, but it's like, you know, Binyavanga said it really well, like, it gets to a point where it's like, you know, he blew up writing How to Write About Africa, which was just angrily repeating the stereotypes of like the African sunset, the elephants, the white savior, and, you know, he later recanted it in a way not dissimilar to, you know, Chappelle recanting his humor because people, he said, were laughing at him rather than with him. But yeah, in Binya's case, it was like, he said, kind of like what you were saying earlier, there's a billion fucking Africans. Like we have to start taking the reins and create our own things as opposed to constantly reacting to this negative propaganda like the Jordan Peele stuff. And yeah, so that's why I really thought this moment was important. And he says it himself right there. Be my own prophet. I love that line. That's just inspired by that shot from Anything with New York, but I think it was Godfather 1 or 2. Just thought that looked cool. And you'll note the transition going into the next frame here is a ripoff of the transition from Lawrence of Arabia. I think he's lighting a match and then it transitions to a sunset. And in this one I had Philip smoking and coming from the sunset. Just a little cute little, oh look, it's dark and then orange, and then bright, you know. So check that out. Right? and it transitions into, just like musically you would do like a pre-chorus, it transitions into the next verse here. I love that there's this raggedy looking white stuff on the building.
I think it was an advertisement wrap that came off.
Word, it kind of looks like those Tyvek wraps that like the homes around Manville have.
Nah, they got the logo. They got logo coming out the ass on that. That's too thick. That looks like regular paper. I don't know.
But also, I kind of liked, returning to that theme of like organic and I don't want to lean too hard into that theme because there's this whole race in the pastoral thing, and Africans are magically natural, which is its own kind of racism. But really, I'm just doing that Tupac metaphor of like flowers out of the concrete, which a little bit cheesy, but it's a theme I had available to me on a day's notice.
You can also speak to this one. You see that guy standing in front of there? He lives there, but he's not in control of what happens to it. You know, he's at the whim of some rich bozo who lives nowhere near where this is.
Right. And should mention this is in the Bronx, so the stuff we shot in the evening was like our second day of shooting. So the first day we shot like Queensbridge area, and then at night we came back to my place in Manville and shot in my quote-unquote studio for the lip-sync parts. But yeah, I just like the look of it too. It actually recalls a little bit of I don't know, I just like the organic shapes, the curvilinear. It kind of looks cool. Oh yeah, and then he has like a trippy transition in the lyrics. Do you feel the snake crawling up the spine in your third eye? Some kind of mystical Egypt Hotep stuff. Not really my thing, but kind of chasing the lyrics there. Also, if you know anything about my filmmaking, you know I hate any camera motion because, like I was saying last night, if I'm looking at a hot girl, I'm staring at her. I'm not swiveling my head around her, you know? And it's the same thing, like, I feel like for moments to hit when you cut a lot, you're kind of removed, you're alienated once you're moving. But, you know, Philip and Victor kind of insisted I do like a tilt up of these both. All right, you know. And I usually don't do these VFX kind of graphics things either. But I thought, you know, crawling up the spine, and I was trying to do like a True Detective double exposure. I don't know if you've seen like the first season of True Detective. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I never got around to that one.
Oh, well, in the beginning of it, there's this really great moment in the opening, you know, intro, where it's double exposures, which is just two images kind of overlapping each other, intersecting, and you know, you're really supposed to do it against like a solid background, so it's easier to key out. But there's a frame I really, really love in that intro, which is, you know, that TV show revolves around a woman getting abducted and you know, murdered, like she's a prostitute, and that like kicks off the investigation that is the show. And one of the ways they illustrate that in the frame, connecting to what I was saying earlier, it's a double exposure of a woman's body showing like her butt cleavage, like those little dimples you have on your butt. Some women, you know, I don't know, I've only seen like 2 women naked ever. That's a joke. And yeah, double exposure of this woman's
There's some truth to jokes.
butt cleavage. Jingo Allah. So like double exposure of this woman's, you know, butt cleavage, and then the other exposure is a children's playground, which I thought was brilliant because as a prostitute, you're the playground of whoever's paying for you, which is, you know, in the context of the show, as it goes up the ladder, it's like, you know, bougie brats, the architects of segregation, which goes back into what I was saying earlier about the infantilization, right? Like, women are dehumanized much like African American men, like, in the sense that if you don't have equal wage, if you don't have job opportunities, training, then you're in a situation where you're at the whims of the wealthy dude, and your body is his playground, and you're a kid, you know, vulnerable, you know, subject to him. And it also, you know, there's a bunch of very wonderful double exposure shots in that opening thing. And when you really think about it artistically, to me, the double exposure represents how it's used in that show, in the opening.
Okay.
It's where you're from.
Or like a lot of Bond movie openings.
Yeah, good point. It structures who you are. And I'm big on like zooming out, like superstructure. So like, okay, you're this beautiful, wonderful person to yourself in your head, but ultimately we're all structured by our environment and what we're capable of doing to some extent. And that's what I like about the double exposures. Like, so this shot of like, you know, this apartment complex, I'm assuming, don't quote me, it structures your interiority. Like, you know, when you grow up in a certain area, where you're from determines how you think, how you act, and most importantly, how other people perceive you and how they treat you. So I thought that was a way of like, you know, doing this. And I did it the way that True Detectives did it. Like, I learned how to use the pen tool and keyed them out. But I actually liked it better when I accidentally did a blend mode thing, and it had this kind of weed, but also kind of like warmth, but also potentially rage like look to it. Oh, sorry, did I cut you off there, Mike?
No.
Okay. This was just a lucky thing. So driving around the second day at the end, we went to we were driving back from Harlem. We went to Times Square, and this, like, I like this little detail of the American flag, and then the, you know, the fire next time, James Baldwin kind of thing that we're going through nationally now. And you know, I just boosted the reds. I don't even think I might have just boosted the yellows a little bit, and it just gave it this wonderful burning public bus look, which is like, you know, yeah,
A little prescient for what was to come.
Yeah, man. Hey, I got my finger on the pulse. I'm gonna take credit for it, even though wow, that echoed weird. Yeah, I just like this idea of like being swarmed by like commercialism and fakeness of like Times Square, and then the burning of the American people in a public bus.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how bad those protests got out of control, Times Square never had any troubles.
I don't even watch the news anymore. Yeah. Oh yeah, this was great too, and props to Victor because I had a camera.
That vote thing up there is awesome looking.
Yeah, let me get into that. Props to Victor because he helped me shoot. I mean, Philip and Victor were very, very helpful. I have this back injury, and because of that, I can't carry gear like I used to, or even walk much. So they were carrying my stuff around, and while I had the GX85 Panasonic mounted on the rear window using a ram mount, a suction mount, I wanted to get a different angle, so I had my iPhone. I gave it to Victor, and he got all these shots that were the previous shot we just saw, and this shot here. Yeah, so I actually just saw They Live. I didn't even see They Live when Victor shot this.
Really?
But I saw it later, and wow, does it really fit? Like, yeah, I mean, it's obviously Trump as the They Live. The story of They Live, for people who don't know, John Carpenter directed it. It's basically about a metaphor in the Wikipedia entry that he said it's a metaphor for yuppies. So, they kind of control society. They control everyone's lives through economic coercion, indirectly, going back to that remote control theme. And in the movie, a poor white dude who's a literal day laborer, played by what's his name?
Roddy Piper.
Thank you. Alongside Keith David, they're day laborers, and they discover this like kind of I don't know, is it Maoist or like some commie kind of thing, or just poverty resistance organization that develops these glasses that allows you to see physically, deconstruct these infiltrating, kind of public-facing benign parasites, but really, truly parasites, like, that kind of control all of us. And that's what the commanding heights of the economy are. They operate parasitically on, the economic, this quote-unquote outdated term, but the economic third world. Also, though, in frame, I love this frame. It's got, like, 3 little details, like, the vote thing, obviously, and personally, I think voting is pointless. The best protest vote is a dead honky. I mean, actually owning businesses and land, but even then, who makes the laws? Plantation investor class genealogies. Honestly, simply orange, and then the Trump image, I thought that was just funny. It was a little bit cheeky, because it's like, is Trump really honest? Are we really that simple? And not even to isolate Trump there, I just feel that generally about politicians.
And you have the LOL immediately in between.
That's right. Yeah, Mike, you on point, yeah. Yeah, because it's all a fucking joke.
The system is killing the black man, and religion is just a trap, man. Jesus Christ, I know.
I really thought, when you say something intense like, Jesus Christ, I know what they done, I was like, I gotta get the extreme close for that shot, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What they done, you don't even...
Alright, so this was a deliberate choice I made here. This was pretty well exposed considering it was micro 4/3, but let me just grab another water. My voice is going. Yeah, so I deliberately underexposed this shot of these apartment buildings because I have this concept of like, how do I visualize atomization? Because that's a word a lot of people maybe don't know, and it's like, it's just basically segregation into little tiny atoms. Like you're segregated within your own family, and I think that's probably a theme of any honest poor white content in America. And obviously there's like the urban alienation similarly because, it's the crab barrel thing. So I wanted to visualize that where it's like by dragging down the exposure in post and really bringing out that low dynamic range of the GX85, you could get these little windows into, worlds, self-contained world, or self-contained, I don't know why I'm saying that. Worlds of like color and life, but at the same time, ultimately structured by this economic and ethnic violence.
Know that you worship the sun.
Right, and that's why I love this frame. And This was an homage to Horse Money, directed by Pedro Costa, as a Portuguese filmmaker, I believe. He did like a bunch of movies in Vanda's room. It's one of my faves. Horse Money is a tail end of like a series of movies he did that's kind of pseudo documentary because it's real people who really live in these places, but kind of abstracted. And basically, Cape Verde, it was an uninhabited island off the west coast of Africa, and it was used, I think, by the Spanish and Portuguese as a slave port. And the people who lived in this slave port, eventually got nationhood over centuries or whatever. And the movie talks about the movie Horse Money, which I sort of homaged in this shot. Mm-hmm. It concerns an old, I think he's like a day laborer, language barrier because I don't speak Portuguese, but subtitles. And it's just an abstract movie to begin with, but a day laborer going senile, and it's like he's structured once again by the violence of the colonizer. So there's a lot of shots of him in the earlier movies in the series, in the ghetto. And what's really funny is where Mohjay lives now in Germany, his apartments look virtually identical to the ones in not in Vanda's. Is it? I think it is in Vanda's room. In the earlier movies, where the main character of Horse Money lives, and they have that kind of grid, blankness to them. And Manhattan itself as a city, or New York as a city, has that grid a lot of the old world cities like in France and England, they have a radial organic growth pattern to them. But the newer cities in Manhattan, they were planned to be a plantation grid from the beginning. So mm-hmm. They had the numbered streets and that kind of thing. But back to Horse Money. So in Horse Money, he's going senile, and he's in an old folks / hospice care kind of situation. And there's a wonderful shot where as a visitor, he doesn't recall, and it's never really clear if he's dreaming or if he's just got dementia and stuff like that. It's like an existential ghost story, I think the trailer says. But what struck me is there's a shot of his face, and he's framed by the buildings, and then there's another cut of the institutional hospital buildings, which obviously as a new cripple I've been thinking about a lot, being framed by the ERs and stuff. And you want to bring your own experience into what you're creating because you know what you know. Like Jeezy says, I know what I know and I don't know nothing else. Them indictments come around. Why ask for some shit I could do it myself? Be my own prophet. And so I really want to make this point clear. I'm spending so much time here, but Horse Money, it's he's framed by the hospital institutions in the same way he was framed by the day labor institution, the Cape Verde life. And then the other characters in Vanda's room, their addictions. I think it was opium in that movie. Mm-hmm. So, and there's a weird metany going on with the hospital EMT kind of lights. What's that called? The ambulance lights. And then that shot of him with his head against these buildings, the hospital building. And I kind of homaged that earlier too a little bit in that double exposure scene. But yeah, that's why I did the underexposure there.
It's all fiction, and it's called white supremacy. Painting pictures on the wall, don't make it real to me. Yeah, just follow the facts. They stole everything from the pyramid text, now back to the source.
Oh yeah, so this is.
He says the pyramid text.
Yeah.
About the original Egyptians were black thing.
Once again, you definitely have to ask Raslock, Philip there. But yeah, to me that's kind of
I don't know if I want to ask questions like that to the actual artist. I'm asking you.
I mean, I can't really say because, like I said, he wrote the lyrics, and I think in that cut that's just him saying it, right? But what I can say is for sure, I think, and this doesn't really involve Philip per se, but it speaks to what we're kind of talking about. Afrocentrism in America, I think, is it's an obvious response to colonization, because throughout history, when a colonizer, and when I say a colonizer, I generally mean English, when they come, there's always a counter reaction to it, like the people there. And you can see in my lecture that I gave at Rutgers, Kazi qua Washamba, Hip Hop and Hustling in East Africa, or you could just YouTube search Hip Hop and Hustling in East Africa, Kazi, Kazi, Wa-W-A, Washamba, W-A-S-H-A-M-B-A. I'll put a link in there. I talk about this idea of, there's like a quasi-religious movement, but what it really is when there's a resistance to colonization by local indigenous people, it's just basically they need to create like a new language and new ideology to resist the new invader ideology, because before maybe they're warring with each other, but now they have the European coming for the resources and doing the slavey shit. And, so now you have the Mau Mau Oath, so that was like Kikuyu and a bunch of other subnational, what am I saying? It was the British East Africa Company and then British East Africa, so it was still a colony at the time. But basically, a bunch of ethnic groups coming together under the Mau Mau oathing ceremony, which basically said, I'm ride or die for this shit, because fuck being colonized, because we're literally being starved to death because they don't know how to fucking plant shit right. That's more like Tanzania, which would be German East Africa, Zanzibar. But, policies of just economic, coffee plantation, extraction, whites and Asians, Indians being brought in to be like the middle class, Asians brought in to be the middle class, and ruling whites who took over the highlands, and, they really relocated Nairobi, the capital that was organically Mombasa, the coast, the port, to Nairobi to, give that safari camp for the Wazungu, the white people, that was like their power center. what I'm saying here is like, why Afrocentrism? This is just my point of view, but I think a lot of people will share it. There's a great essay in Transition magazine. I think it's number 87. I'm gonna botch the pronunciations. About Molfi Hasante. I'm gonna fuck it up. But basically, it was a guy who wrote about like a sort of fictionalized Pan African history that was, kind of like what the Mau Mau were doing, like creating a history to resist the given colonizer version of events, the public school goofy racism. And, so I think as a guy who's like lived in Africa for a bit, for a year in Kenya there, and, talking to like a guy who's, professionally a historian and doing a lot of blog interviews with people from the ghetto, hiphopkambi.wordpress.com for those interviews in Swahili and English, and Shang, street language. As a guy who's seen that side of it as well, which I think a lot of African Americans, didn't really have the opportunity to do. As a privileged suburban white boy, I got to go and see it for myself. I just wish, I think this is what's my problem with like Disney's Black Panther and stuff like that. This idea that we have Hollywood writers write what African history is, because if you knew what the real African history was, you'd be way more skeptical of the ruling class and do something about it and organize yourself. Like one of the songs the hip hop studio I was associated with in Kenya, Audio Kusini, they had a song, Kazi kwa Washamba, Miashara kwa Wazee, which was like, day laboring for poor's, salaries for the elders. And, most of Africa's population is young. And that kind of worker history solidarity is completely erased in America. If you grow up like me and Mike did in Manville, you don't really learn about, the people's history of the United States, Howard Zinn type stuff. But even going further, you never learn the plantation economic history, that Edward E. Baptist Half Has Never Been Told book. And for me personally, I'm always trying to go back to the actual causality, because I feel like when you're in the Disney Wakanda Forever trap, it's fake flattery that ends up destroying you, because you're a proud black person, but you don't know why black as a category exists, because that whole category exists because Anglo bankers paid some poor whites to, drag some slaves over to the Atlantic and undo the, escape the Malthusian economic trap that we've been stuck in since human history, the agricultural farming, and then using the technology of slavery and the coffle system, creating the economic conditions for literally from the 1600s to now. Like, the world we live in has all been organized by that segregation, devised in England and Europe in the financial institutions, which is why you'll never see me doing the the Wakanda Forever thing per se. Though I think Chadwick Boseman's great, and I really liked Get On Up.
I don't know. I would say that from where we grew up, I got a slightly different history education than you did, since you're more my sister's age.
Fair enough.
We covered a lot more of the nitty-gritty stuff. I mean, the Barbary pirates, the slave trade, and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, we got into some dark stuff throughout that, but my sister had no clue about any of it.
Yeah, so maybe it is generational. I mean,
there was some vanillaing of the
the
lessons.
I mean, frankly, I went to like a very hard left college, private school, and like even then, I feel like I learned infinitely more about African history, reading about it, African writers, thank you, Binyavanga, and actually going there, of course, was immensely helpful. But, you can't do the guided tour thing. You kind of have to decide to put yourself in a position where you're going to learn and be open to these experiences. I know a lot of people...
I do have one serious question for you.
Sure, go ahead.
Why this apartment building?
Oh, yeah. Looping all the way back around. 1520 Sedgwick Ave is this was Philip's choice here. In the Bronx, it's the place of DJ Kool Herc, who is according to Wikipedia, the founder and inventor of hip hop. Hosted a party with, I guess, emceeing and live DJ set. So lyrically, when he's talking about looping back to the beginning of the video, me and Mohjay had that conversation about the gold in Kenya and in Africa at large is the people. And, that gold chain kind of hearkening back and also representing a kind of Afrocentrism for sure, a little maybe. But Pan-Africanism's a better word.
For people in the know, I mean, I literally had no clue.
Yeah.
Building to me.
And, Victor actually had a good point about it. Because it's called, like, they renamed the shoot, I think, like Hip Hop Ave or something goofy. And when I was shooting it just to get it, he was like, yeah, that's kind of, like, lame. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, so I shot it more organically like this, kind of cribbing from, like, the Wire kind of flavor, like, little angle and a little bit wider shot. And, what's going on lyrically? He's saying, like, back to the source, back to the roots. Yeah. And it's like, obviously, I don't think White Man Victor is the source. But the source is the African love, the communalism, the shared experience, as opposed to, the Jordan Peele version of these two guys killing each other because it's magic, not because of, banker colonizers determining their lives.
Back to the roots, that's where I found love and it's invisible. Yeah, back to the source, back to the roots, that's where I found love and it's invisible.
And same thing, that smile, just that shared joy, that African socialism that is illegal in, Jordan Peele Get Out type movies.
Love, I like that spirit I got that. You can never fuck with me. You cannot fuck with me. My own prophet, the only option is fighting for unity. Love,
and then I had a shot of a police car going by, but I was like, that's a bit old hat. And I like the idea of ambulance because, in a way, it's scarier because it's like someone's hurt, And once again, bringing my experiences into it as a cripple, doing that a lot. I love this shot. This dude kind of felt like a politician. And it's,
Looks like a banker to me. What is that place?
Yeah, I don't know. An old white dude. And then the window kind of framing it.
I have no idea.
Sounds goofy. Sounds institutional. Sounds African-hating. But I don't really know.
The publishing empire.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yo, what happened to the African Writers series, by the way? That's a whole other conversation. But it's been supplanted by a Hollywood Jordan Peele writing series. I'm really going in on Jordan Peele today. Yeah, I thought, going back to
is
that...
Is Jordan Peele as talented as everyone makes him sound? I don't know.
He serves an economic and ethnic segregationist function of dividing poor whites and black people more than the economy already does. But yeah, all
right.
Here I did the profile shot because I like his little expression here. I
like that because he's hidden away, but the light from the thing is
hitting
him.
It's like the light is hitting him and it's looking at him, but they're at 90 degrees to each other. So it implies a kind of alienation, or to me it's like Phillips blowing off the goofiness, the deception of this old white man. Mm-hmm. So that was just a little flavor there. Because he's his own fucking prophet, dog.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. And then going back to the beginning about Philip's ancestry. I think I might have mentioned this last time we talked, Mike, but Philip actually came to America and he was visiting his father for the first time ever. And, I don't really know all the details there because shot this thing over a weekend. But, that's a heavy thing to think about, meeting your father for the first time. And so I knew in the footage, after he told me that, when I was looking at the footage, he looks at this Chicago sign. And, to us, it's just a goofy play. But to Philip, that place has a very personal meaning. And I thought, once again, even though there's not a ton of light in the scene, and I actually even underexposed it further because I feel like the way the light hits his face and his eye is under a lower eyelid, it gives you the feeling like his whole pose, his whole demeanor in this shot is thinking about why, you know, his dad's in America and his mom's in Germany, and what is, like, you know, the contemporary transatlantic reality. And I thought that was a poignant way to end the video. And I'll just play it out a little. I had the smile coming forward. So obviously the blue and red lights, a theme I've done before, is a little old hat, the cop lights. But I like his smile here because it has a kind of, and maybe I'm just reading into it on some like, oh, scary black man, white racism. But going back to the kindergarten thing, because, you know, that's how they do it. They get you when you're kids. That bemused look, you know, it's kind of, there's a little bit of mystery to it. It's like, is it, you know? And then, yeah, that I feel like I really wanted that moment to play out, you know, this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the video, guys. So now Q&A, I guess.
Well, I mean, gosh, I asked all my questions as we went, you know?
Yeah,
if
probably.
it was a lecture, then I'd have more cues. How were you inspired by the French film Cuties to make this?
That's my next video. Like, literally, I kind of almost was, like, but I can't get it done before the election because I ordered some gear to make it happen, but it hasn't shipped. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you, COVID, but that's petty compared to everything going on. But yeah, let's see. I talked about pretty much everything. Let me see my notes
Yeah,
here.
I mean, we covered a ton. I asked my questions as we went, so I screwed up your whole Q&A portion. I apologize. You can take all my questions out from the middle and put them at the end here, and then it'll just seem really disjointed. Oh, this was a really cool breakdown, though. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, we should do it again on something. What is there anything I wanted to say? Oh yeah, I should mention. Remember how I was talking about like I wanted to do this like in phases, kind of like in a lecture format. One thing when you're working with like new actors and stuff, or non-actors, you really want to have a plan. Like, and this even
I've decided I don't want to use non-actors anymore.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Burned too many times with that.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Well,
people were like,
yeah.
"Yeah, I really want to get into acting," you know, and then they're just like, "I haven't prepared. I have given it no thought. I have no idea how to act in front of the camera. I have no presence. I have no idea how the space I can move and be in. I have no idea where I should be looking, how I should be talking." So, yeah. No, I want somebody who's at least, you know, attempted it. At least attempt.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. Like, I think with music videos, you get a little lucky because he's rapping his actual song that he wrote, you know?
Well, than just that.
But,
Someone in a music video, they're used to performing in some capacity. So at least they
Yeah.
have that idea of presence, which somebody who's done neither does not.
Yeah, absolutely. And, but my little tip to Philip was, because I always like to try to, like, when I'm working with someone, old or new, like, I try to give little, like, tips on what would make things improve. Like, so in, like, some of the lip sync takes we were doing, like, you know, he didn't really have, like, a plan for the choreography or, like, how he was going to move his hands when he moved them. So some of the takes I actually had to, like, throw out just because he was, like, doing too many hand gestures at once, like, simultaneously, like, and they were all confused and, like, yeah, it's, like, overlapping because he was, like, he doesn't know what hand gesture he's doing until he, like, thinks of it as he's doing the lyrics in real time. So it's like, oh, I should do this hand gesture, but the lyric that hand gesture fit has already happened, you know? And then you're already on the way to the next hand gesture, and it, as opposed to a more actorly way of preparing and planning is like, when this lyric comes, I do this hand gesture, you know? But to be fair, you know, I don't know how, I don't feel like Philip's done a whole lot of music videos and that kind of thing. But just a tip for working with like new actors, non-actors, performers. Yeah. Let's see, is there anything else? I think we really got into a lot of cool stuff. I think this turned out better because he would kind of allowed me to go into my historical rants, which was dope.
Of course.
Appreciate that, yeah. Tip of the
Hey,
hat.
happy to help.
Yeah, we went into the Cape Verde stuff. Cool. Barbed wire, yeah, that's there.
I was able to argue about the system. That's all I need to do.
Yeah, man, I had some cool little details about like the mayor and stuff in New York in like the 80s or whatever. Because yeah,
I
that was a
alive
little...
for it, man. I remember it.
Exactly, that was a little before my time. You're right. Like,
I'm old as shit. All right. But I do have a 5-hour meeting tomorrow, so I got to get some sleep at some point.
All right, man.
But thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Sounds good.
And I think Cast is a good platform for this.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks a lot, Mike. Oh, by the way, I should introduce you. Mike, director of Superhero and Party Favors, filmmaker, director, producer.
You can check me out, brainsaladproductions.com.
Cool. One more time because I talked over you.
Oh, sorry. That's brainsaladproductions.com.
Awesome. All right.
So,
thanks a lot, Mike. Have a good night.
you got it, Kevin. Have a good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.